Winifred Quill spent half an hour at the local police station before deciding to call Gareth Lambert. After all, an ex-boyfriend she had broken up with just 2 weeks ago was easier to deal with than her suicidal parents. Gareth arrived quite quickly. Seeing her dejected appearance, his face darkened even more. "Couldn't you just let your ex-boyfriend die in your contacts list?" he asked. Winifred stubbornly played dumb. "Well, I happen to need you to come back to life for a moment." "Is that not allowed?" "Oh, give it a rest." Gareth waved his hand, not wanting to argue with her. Winifred was always right, and worse, she had a quick tongue and spoke rapidly. He had never won an argument against her. Dating her often felt like participating in a debate competition. "What happened?" he asked. Winifred pursed her lips and pointed to a young man sitting on the bench opposite them. The man was wearing a black hoodie, his red hair was a mess like a bird's nest, and there were several scratch marks on his face. Gareth frowned. "Did you hit him?" He just touched me on the underground." Before she could finish, Gareth lunged forward, grabbing the man's collar and lifting him up. "What kind of rubbish are you?" A nearby police officer quickly rushed over to pull him away, pushing him back onto the seat and giving him a good telling off. "Now I see where your girlfriend gets her temper from. You two really are a match made in heaven." Gareth, chastised, hung his head but couldn't help retorting, "Officer, please be precise." "She's my ex-girlfriend." The officer, also hot-tempered, snapped back, "Don't call me officer like that. I don't have such a muddle-headed nephew." He then turned the computer screen towards Winifred. "This is the CCTV footage from the underground. It's very clear that this gentleman was just bending down to tie his shoelace. When he stood up, his shoulder accidentally brushed against your bottom. It wasn't an intentional act of molestation." Winifred and Gareth both leaned in, watching the footage several times before slowly nodding. "We encourage all women to bravely resist when faced with harassment, but at the same time, it's important to maintain rationality and objectivity. If you encounter such a situation in the future, you can call the police directly and let us handle it. Otherwise, misunderstandings like today's could occur, and you might end up having to compensate the other party." The officer spoke earnestly, not forgetting to praise Winifred at the end. "However, you were very brave. When it comes to inappropriate touching, one should never remain silent. This is exactly how to say no." Winifred nodded, her face red. She thanked the officer, then went over to sincerely apologize to the man and compensated him £200 for medical expenses. The money came from Gareth. Winifred had just rented a new flat, and after paying the deposit and rent, she had less than £50 left. "I'll pay you back next month." Gareth transferred another £200 to her WhatsApp. "Pay it all back then, with bank interest." Although Winifred knew he was just saying it, she couldn't help feeling a pang in her heart. This was the man she had been in a relationship with for 3 years, and now they had to be so formal with each other. He was clearly telling her that they had no relationship anymore, not even as friends. Sure enough, Gareth took out his car keys but didn't offer to drive her home. He just got into the car directly. 3 seconds later, he got out again, slamming the door so hard it shook. "Winifred, if you have androphobia, go get it treated. Stop seeing every bloke as a bad guy. And me, I'm too embarrassed to even talk about it. We dated for 3 years, and forget about sex, I didn't even get to kiss you more than 10 times. You were as stiff as a statue, you know that? Sometimes you even trembled with nervousness, always making me feel like I was committing a crime. I've had enough of this." With that, Gareth drove off, leaving behind a cloud of acrid exhaust fumes that hit Winifred in the face, making her eyes sting with tears. But she couldn't cry. Her heart felt increasingly stifled, and more than anything, she felt a sense of helplessness. The street was bustling with traffic, people coming and going all around her. Yet Winifred felt like a lonely ghost, drifting aimlessly, unable to find an anchor. All the hustle and bustle of the world seemed irrelevant to her. Not only had she lost the person she loved, but she was also scolded by her parents for breaking up. They said she was fussy and difficult, that her fear of marriage was a sickness, and that she should see a psychologist. Winifred had no intention of going, nor did she want to argue endlessly with her parents. So she rented a flat and moved out of the family home again. It was nearly 11 when Winifred Quill got home. She hadn't had dinner yet, but was too lazy to cook. She decided to just take a shower and go to bed. When she came out, she saw 3 missed calls on her phone, all from Gareth Lambert. Winifred called him back. Gareth exploded on the other end. "What's the point of having a phone if you don't use it? You might as well eat it. Don't mention eating." Winifred rubbed her stomach. "I haven't had dinner yet." "Now you've made me even hungrier." Gareth fell silent for a moment, his tone softening. "What do you want to eat?" "I'll bring it over." "You're coming over? Now? It's so late. Don't get any ideas, I need to talk to you about something." Gareth grumbled irritably. "I'll get you that shepherd's pie you always have." Bye. 40 minutes later, Gareth arrived. His place wasn't close, and he'd stopped to buy food on the way. He must have been speeding again. "You should drive slower in the future. No matter how urgent it is, you need to be safe." Winifred took a bowl from the kitchen and emptied the shepherd's pie into it. She didn't like eating from takeaway containers, it always felt impersonal. Gareth sat on the sofa, lost in thought as he stared at the emerald green and gold-rimmed ceramic bowl she was using. They had bought it on their first day living together, along with plates and teacups. A set of 16 pieces, 4 digits in price. Winifred had fretted over the cost for ages. But he thought it was worth it because Winifred loved it, and it was a memento of the start of their life together. Yet that period of their lives wasn't as perfect as it should have been. They hadn't done what most couples do, even though it was normal. Gareth didn't insist on anything. He loved Winifred and respected her above all. But it was precisely because of this that Winifred's constant aversion to intimacy made him overthink. Why? Did she find him repulsive? Did she not trust him? Or did she not love him? He had tried to probe, but got no answers. Instead, Winifred, seeming to feel guilty, would initiate hugs but then freeze up, not knowing what to do next, her face pale and body rigid. In those moments, Gareth felt defeated for the first time. Winifred had secrets she wasn't willing to share with him. She was forcing herself, putting on a brave face to accommodate him. So what kind of boyfriend was he in Winifred's eyes? Unreliable and selfish, disregarding her feelings? Gareth was frustrated. He decided to reflect on himself and try to get closer to Winifred's hidden thoughts, but she didn't give him the chance. Winifred initiated the breakup, saying it was her personal issue. She said he was great, and that she wasn't good enough for him. Gareth was baffled at being friend-zoned out of the blue. His temper flared, and he didn't try to salvage things at all, just packed his bags and left. After leaving, he sat in the hallway, listening to Winifred's muffled sobs inside. His heart felt like it was being roasted over a fire. He made a silent vow to figure out the strange reason behind Winifred's behavior. So, accepting the breakup and taking a step back might be a good way to move forward. Even his harsh words were meant to provoke Winifred into speaking. But clearly, he had underestimated Winifred's level of resistance. After all, if she could keep silent for 3 years, how could she open up easily now? Fortunately, he had patience. It couldn't be harder than when he first pursued Winifred. "What did you want to talk to me about earlier?" Winifred finished eating, washed the bowl efficiently, and sat down on the sofa, drying her hands. Gareth snapped out of his reverie, pulled out his phone from his pocket, tapped it a couple of times and pushed it towards her. "You've gone viral, Miss Quill, the new internet sensation." A passenger had filmed Winifred beating up the pervert on the underground and posted it on Twitter, attracting considerable attention. Many users commented below, mostly saying the girl did well and the creep deserved it. In the video, she looked every bit the female warrior, her righteous profile frozen on the video thumbnail. In reality, Winifred scratched her head helplessly. How did things turn out like this? "So why are you always so sensitive?" "It's a bad habit I've had for years," Winifred said casually as she returned the phone to Gareth. "It's too late tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll record a video to clarify things from my perspective as the person involved." Seeing her evasiveness, Gareth didn't press further. As he was leaving, he looked around Winifred's new flat. "Why did you move here again?" Our old place was fine, wasn't it? You could have just stayed there after I moved out. Winifred followed behind to see him off. I was scared living alone without you. But aren't you still living alone here? This estate has good security, with guards working in 3 shifts, patrolling 24 hours a day. It's safe. Gareth fell silent at her words, then let out a derisive laugh after a while. Looks like I'm less reliable than a few strange security guards. Winifred panicked inwardly and instinctively reached out to grab him, but he quickly slipped out the door and walked away. At the lift, he called out glumly, "Remember to lock your doors and windows." His voice, angry yet helpless, echoed in the quiet corridor, making Winifred's heart ache with bittersweet pain, but even more with guilt and sympathy. She wasn't a good girlfriend, not even a psychologically healthy person. She used to think time would slowly erase everything, but later discovered that the scars were too deep. She couldn't even get over it herself, so how could she burden Gareth? Winifred Quill had barely fallen asleep when dawn was breaking. She was suddenly jolted awake by a nightmare, her body drenched in cold sweat. Feeling groggy, she got out of bed and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. After gulping it down, she placed the glass back on the table, but her hand slipped, sending it crashing to the floor. Winifred quickly fetched a broom and dustpan to clean up the mess. In her haste, one of her slippers fell off, and unable to stop her momentum, she stepped on the broken glass with her bare foot. She hissed in pain as it cut into her soul. Hopping on one leg, she made it to the sofa and sat down, carefully picking out the shards from her foot. The eerie dream from last night came back to her, making her feel uneasy. Suddenly, her phone rang from the bedroom. It was Gareth Lambert. "Don't hang up, check Twitter first," he said urgently. Winifred's heart sank, filled with a sense of foreboding. The video of her hitting someone last night hadn't died down as she'd hoped. Instead, it had gone viral overnight and was now trending. The police department's official Twitter account had publicly replied to the original poster, and their comment had quickly become the top response. After investigation, this department has determined that the man in the video did not commit any act of sexual harassment. We request the original poster to delete the video promptly to avoid any negative impact on the parties involved. Your cooperation is appreciated. This official statement caused an uproar. The netizens who had been supporting Winifred last night now felt deceived and turned against her. Thousands of comments flooded in, condemning and insulting her. Winifred read through them, feeling dejected but resigned. After all, she had been in the wrong, and it was only right for the police to clarify the situation. "Could you come over and help me record a video? And bring some iodine, cotton swabs, and gauze, please," she asked Gareth. His voice immediately grew louder with concern. "Are you hurt?" Without waiting for an answer, he added, "Don't move, I'm on my way." Gareth must have broken the speed limit again, as he arrived in just 35 minutes. As soon as he entered, he anxiously examined her foot before picking her up. "We should go to the Royal Hospital. What if there's still glass in there? It could get infected." Winifred quickly wrapped her arms around his neck. "Really, there's no need. I've already picked out all the pieces. It wasn't that badly broken." Gareth sighed, setting Winifred down and kneeling beside her to carefully disinfect and bandage her foot. Winifred felt a sharp pang in her heart, as if a hot needle had pricked the lock guarding her secrets. She knew Gareth must have sensed something, which was why she had been so quick to break up with him. But she hadn't expected him to continue pursuing the truth, nor to stand by her side. Beyond gratitude, she felt hope. Perhaps Gareth could be her doctor. After tending to her foot, Gareth helped her record the video. Winifred sat on the sofa with the bright window behind her. She carefully explained the entire incident, emphasizing that both parties had reached a resolution with the help of the police officers at the scene. Finally, she apologized to the other party involved for any distress caused. Then, logging into her Twitter account, she posted the video and mentioned the original poster, requesting via direct message that they remove the initial video. Having done all this, Winifred let out a sigh of relief. "I hope this whole mess ends here." When she didn't hear a response, she leaned over to see Gareth on his phone, systematically responding to the cruel comments under the original video. His eyes were downcast, half his face bathed in the morning sunlight, his jaw clenched in obvious anger. Winifred smiled and placed her hand over his. "Let it go. They don't know me anyway, I don't care. Gareth paused. What about me? Don't you care about me either? Winifred, I often wonder what I am to you. We're supposed to be lovers, but there's not enough intimacy or trust. It's only slightly more genuine than being strangers. You've locked yourself away, and you've thrown away the key. I come empty-handed and leave empty-handed, never able to open the door to your heart. So please, tell me, what do I need to do to get that key? Having failed with his previous approach, Gareth had now changed tactics. He was playing the sympathy card. Sure enough, Winifred's face fell, her eyes filled with unmistakable guilt. Her eyes reddened as she lowered her head, fidgeting with her fingers. In the end, it was Gareth who took her hand in his, finally stilling her trembling. He could feel Winifred relax, as if she had been guided over some invisible threshold. Gareth gently wiped away the tears at the corner of her eye, struggling to contain his own pain. This time, he was determined to hold on to Winifred, no matter what. Even if the path ahead led to a quagmire, he would fight with all his might to save her. Gareth's gaze was too solemn, and his question hit too close to home. Winifred couldn't handle it, so she could only play dumb to avoid the issue. She refused even when Gareth offered to drive her to work, insisting on limping to the underground station herself. Gareth had to practically drag her into the car. The journey was silent. She still couldn't bring herself to talk about that incident. At first, it was too embarrassing, but now she feared losing him. Without a doubt, Gareth loved her, but could this love bear the weight of such a heavy past? Gareth stopped the car and unbuckled her seatbelt. Until your foot heals, I'll drive you to and from work. Wait for me this afternoon. Winifred waved her hand dismissively. No need, it's too much trouble. I said it's not trouble, so it's not. It's just a small injury, it'll be fine in 2 days. Then I'll drive you for 2 days. Gareth shouted, then added, just consider it me being a bloody fool if you must. Winifred suddenly trembled. Gareth had said those words before. It was when she had just switched to her current company. To prove herself, she often worked so late she skipped meals, pulling overtime 5 days a week. Gareth worried about her and told her several times not to push herself so hard, fearing her health would suffer. Seeing she wouldn't listen, he started ordering various takeaways for her every day, asking nothing in return, just wanting her to eat properly at the very least. Only a third of those expensive, elaborate meals actually made it into her stomach. The rest were left aside to go cold. She didn't dare bring the leftovers home for Gareth to see, so she fed them to the stray cats near her office. During that time, even the cats got fatter, while she only grew thinner. Sometimes she'd feel dizzy when standing up after crouching. Later, she fainted on the way to an external meeting and was taken to the Royal Hospital by a kind stranger. The diagnosis was severe anemia due to overwork and malnutrition. When she woke up, Gareth was sitting by her bed, his lips pressed against the back of her hand. When he looked at her, his eyes held a hint of reproach. I've already called your manager and resigned on your behalf. Winifred was shocked and struggled to sit up, only to feel dizzy again. Gareth hurried to support her, but she pushed him away. What right do you have to do that? Doesn't all my hard work count for anything? Gareth's eyes reddened too. What right? The right that I'm your emergency contact, that I worry about you every day, that the doctor said you'll die if you keep this up. Your hard work doesn't count? What about me? Doesn't my care for you count for anything? At the time, Winifred could only think about the project she was about to lose, and spoke without thinking. It's not like I asked you to. Gareth looked as if he'd been punched in the face. His face went pale, his lips quivering slightly. Right, you didn't ask me to. It's all just me being a bloody fool. He always struggled to win arguments with Winifred, and when frustrated, he'd throw in a swear word to regain some ground. It had become a habit over time. This time, his words carried a hint of helplessness and heartbreak as he turned and left the room. Winifred immediately regretted her words and got out of bed to chase after him. The stand toppled over, knocking down the medicine cups on the table. Everything crashed to the floor, and she fell too, her legs too weak to stand. Hearing the commotion, Gareth rushed back, anxiously lifting her up and calling for a nurse. There were still traces of tears in his eyes. It was the first time she'd seen Gareth cry, full of hurt, yet still holding her preciously and carefully. "Don't worry, I was lying. I didn't actually resign for you. I just wanted you to take it easier and look after your health." For the first time, Winifred hugged Gareth on her own initiative. "I wasn't going back to work either, I just wanted to find you. Gareth, please, no matter how angry you are, don't leave me alone." Gareth promised, and he kept his word. Over the years, no matter what disagreements they had, no matter how angry Gareth got, he never left her alone. But now, because of those buried, filthy memories from the past, she had chosen to give up Gareth. Was it really worth it? Winifred pondered this question, unable to focus on work, and still hadn't reached a conclusion by the end of the day. Until she saw Gareth, sitting in the driver's seat, the car window half open, the night breeze ruffling his fringe across his brow. Compared to the pain left by childhood trauma, not being able to love Gareth completely hurt her even more. They rarely shared intimate moments. Most of the time, Gareth was restrained and didn't complain much. Out of respect for her, he hadn't even asked directly. Such a good man as Gareth might be able to understand her oddities and embrace her pain. Gareth felt uncomfortable under her stare. "Why are you looking at me like that? I haven't seen you all day. I missed you. Is that something you should say to an ex-boyfriend? Mind your boundaries." Winifred scoffed lightly. "Huh, you didn't remember you were an ex when you were flirting with me this morning, did you? I did no such thing. How can you say that? You even touched my foot and asked for my key." Gareth laughed. "Would you have given it to me if I asked?" He pointed at the gate of the square. "I don't even have a key to your flat yet." Winifred's heart skipped a beat. She bit her lower lip, wanting to invite Gareth up for a bit, but felt it might carry certain implications she wasn't ready for yet. While she was still hesitating, Gareth was already preparing to leave. "Winifred, keep my key for now. I'll get it eventually, but don't force yourself. Because you're more precious than anything." It wasn't until the car's taillights had disappeared that Winifred realized Gareth had flirted with her again. Sighing, she turned to walk back, when suddenly she caught a flash of light from the bushes on her right. When she looked again, everything seemed normal. She didn't pay much attention to it at the time, nor did she mention it to Gareth later. Little did she know it would almost lead to a disaster. Gareth Lambert called Winifred Quill to say he'd be working late and would pick her up later. Winifred agreed on the phone, but she had actually gone home early, planning to prepare a lavish dinner to treat Gareth. She could cook, but her culinary skills were mediocre, the presentation, aroma, and taste were all average, nowhere near Gareth's expertise. "I'll just have to put extra love into it then." Winifred muttered cheesily to herself as she walked home carrying 2 shopping bags, amused by her own words. It truly was a wonderful thing to have someone who could make you smile just by thinking of them. "Winifred?" Someone called her name from behind. Winifred instinctively turned around, her heart suddenly tightening as she saw several unfamiliar faces. They were boys and girls around 17 or 18, with youthful features but eyes full of hostility, glaring at her menacingly. It was clear they weren't here with good intentions. It turned out that the young man Winifred had confronted the other day was a minor celebrity cosplayer in the anime community. The video incident had somewhat tarnished his image. Although Winifred had clarified and apologized, his fans weren't satisfied and continued to hurl abuse at her in the comment section. Through doxing and identifying buildings visible from her window in the video, they had pinpointed the location of her residential square. They had staked out the area overnight, specifically to confront her. Winifred had never faced such a situation before. She could only try to maintain her composure, relying on being a few years older, and prepared herself for another verbal assault at worst. But these young, impetuous kids were both ignorant and fearless. Especially this group, who harbored more aggression and malice than their peers. The girl leading the group stood with her arms crossed, a cold smirk on her lips. "Since you're so keen on imagining being sexually assaulted, we'll grant your wish today." Winifred's heart sank. Before she could respond, she was surrounded. They lunged at her, pulling at her clothes, spewing vulgar insults, while unseen hands pinched and twisted at her body. The sensation was like being licked by the forked tongue of a venomous snake, making her scalp tingle and her hair stand on end. Deeply buried memories were awakened, scenes flashing through her mind: the wardrobe, the toilet, the cramped attic, the wandering large hands, the coarse palms inducing terror. Winifred wanted to escape, but her feet felt like lead, rooted to the spot. She heard a man's heavy breathing again: "Be good, don't run away, you mustn't." That voice seemed to come from hell, carrying a long-harbored malice, dragging Winifred, who had just swum ashore, back into the dark, deep sea. As despair engulfed her, Winifred was on the verge of suffocation. "Winifred!" Gareth's heart-wrenching cry came from afar, like a shot of adrenaline, piercing through the heavy fog and striking Winifred's heart directly. She took a deep breath, suddenly coming back to life. Yes, she still had Gareth, and Gareth was here. Gareth ran over quickly, grabbing those reckless youngsters and beating them mercilessly, not holding back at all, venting all his regret and heartache. Why had he stayed late at work? Why hadn't he arrived earlier? Why did his Winifred have to endure this? He beat them more and more fiercely, like a madman, and they couldn't restrain him. One of the boys picked up half a brick from the ground and smashed it hard on his shoulder. Gareth cried out in pain and suddenly fell to the ground, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers, but his eyes were fixed on Winifred, his lips moving, each word falling into her heart through the sudden clamor. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." After a while, Winifred finally cried out and ran over, helping Gareth up, anxiously checking his wound. Tears fell incessantly, soaking the shoulder of his shirt. Gareth embraced her with one arm, managing to smile. "Well, look at you crying. This blow was worth it." He then pointed at the plastic bags on the ground. "Looks like I've ruined a dinner tonight. What a shame, it's been a while since I've had your beans on toast. Sometimes there's even a bit of eggshell, adds a unique flavor." Winifred knew he was trying to comfort her, so she held back her tears and prepared to take him to the Royal Hospital. Gareth shook his head and asked her instead, "Winifred, why didn't you run or struggle just now? What were you afraid of? You usually don't let anyone take advantage of you. I want you to help me apply medicine. Can you do that? Can you look at my body directly and touch it? If not, can I exchange this wound for an answer?" Gareth Lambert had always been patient and accommodating, almost making Winifred Quill forget that he was, in fact, a strong-willed man. Just like when he had confessed his feelings and she had hesitated, he would make the decision for her. Now, too, Gareth had pushed her to the very limit of her comfort zone, leaving her no room to retreat. Winifred took out the remaining iodine and cotton swabs to disinfect Gareth's wound. The assailant had used the sharp edge of a brick, leaving a bloody gash that was still oozing. Gareth sat shirtless, the muscles of his back forming smooth, taut lines, quite different from the male bodies in her memory. It was fresh, and equally frightening. They all had the same temperature, carrying the same sense of oppression. The only thing that could make her relax was the person in front of her. Winifred reached out, tentatively touching this warm male body, her fingertips trembling slightly, barely making contact before pulling away. It wasn't as difficult as she had imagined. Gareth turned his head, chuckling, "Looks like you've really made progress. The first time I took off my shirt, you wouldn't even look at me. It made me think my body wasn't good enough, so I secretly went to the gym for 2 months." Winifred was surprised. "I had no idea. There's a lot you don't know. Like how every time things got too intimate, you'd unconsciously clench your fists, smiling on the surface but with fear and resistance in your eyes. You were always forcing yourself, thinking it wasn't obvious." Gareth turned around, cautiously pulling Winifred close to his chest. "How about now? Can you accept this?" His bare skin was hot, radiating warmth, making her cheeks flush and her heartbeat suddenly erratic. Winifred clenched her fists, strongly resisting the urge to pull away, forcing herself to stay in Gareth's embrace. A voice in her mind kept reassuring her, "Don't be afraid, don't run, it's Gareth." Suddenly, the warmth at her side vanished. Gareth had let go and stood up, quickly grabbing his shirt and putting it on. The blood on his shoulder had already dried and darkened. Gareth's voice was low, tinged with defeat. "Enough for today, let's stop here." Winifred stood up too, biting her lip. "I can do it." "No, you can't." Gareth turned back. "You're shaking, do you know that? The reason you didn't pull away wasn't because you've accepted it, but because you didn't want to answer my question. Winifred, why don't you understand? I want to help you not for a moment's pleasure, but because I care. Life is so long, why won't you forgive yourself? With that, Gareth left, saying, "Get some rest." The sound of the door closing in the quiet night was like a thunderclap, striking Winifred's heart with pain. Gareth had promised that no matter how angry he got, he would never leave her alone. But now he was gone. If even Gareth left, her world would truly be empty. No, I can't. Winifred suddenly jumped out of bed, not even bothering to put on her slippers, and ran out anxiously. She had been through a lot tonight, her nerves were on edge. And she was even a bit confused about past and present. But she didn't have time to think, she just wanted to find Gareth. As soon as she rushed out of the building, Winifred smelled cigarette smoke. The acrid scent of nicotine with a hint of sweetness floated in the air, invading her every pore with each breath. In the dark corner to her left, a crimson point flickered, burning, slowly approaching as the shadow moved. The smell and scene matched the nightmares deep in her memory, making Winifred shudder uncontrollably, nervously swallowing, unable to make a sound, only standing frozen in place. A hand reached out from beside her, resting on her shoulder, carrying the familiar scent of tobacco. "Winifred?" That clear male voice, mixed with a certain deep voice, drilled into her ears. Next, would come hot palms and foul-smelling lips. "Stay away!" Winifred screamed, clutching her head, her expression twisted with fear, on the verge of collapse. Not even recognizing Gareth in front of her, only looking past him at someone behind. Gareth's heart sank, seeming to realize something. He immediately extinguished the cigarette in his hand, throwing it far away, and called her name as gently as possible. After a while, Winifred came to her senses, staring intently at Gareth's face, breathing heavily as if gasping for air. "When did you start smoking?" "I've always smoked. I quit because I knew you didn't like it. This was given to me by a client when I was working late." Gareth slowly approached Winifred. "I wasn't leaving, I just came out for a smoke, I was about to go back in." Seeing that she wasn't wearing shoes, he was about to take off his own to give to her when he heard Winifred sigh heavily. "Carry me on your back, I'm not afraid of you anymore. What's truly scary is the person in my memories." Gareth was stunned, then saw Winifred reach out her hand. "Give me the cigarette." Winifred Quill simultaneously lit 10 cigarettes and placed them on the coffee table. The room filled with a pale blue haze, the smoke enveloping her entire body, oddly adding a touch of fearlessness to her demeanor. She smiled bitterly. "You see, when I finally decided to lance the festering wound in my heart, I realized it wasn't as daunting as I'd imagined." During the summer holiday when Winifred was 14, her parents had to join a scientific expedition in the Highlands. So they sent her to stay with her aunt who was working in a neighboring county. Her aunt was reluctant at first, having left her own children back in her hometown to work. She naturally didn't want to look after someone else's child. Winifred's parents slipped her aunt a thick envelope, which prompted a smile and a promise to take good care of the girl. As soon as her parents left, her aunt's demeanor changed. She half-heartedly prepared a small bowl of cold rice for Winifred, claiming she was in a rush to get to work, and left the girl alone in the house. It was a cramped bedsit of about 200 square feet, with only a single bed. An old electric fan sat on the desk, not to be used unless the temperature exceeded 95 degrees Fahrenheit. There were also 2 wooden stools which, when pushed together, served as Winifred's bed at night. Winifred knew her aunt had transferred the money to her family back home, so she didn't expect any of it to be spent on her. She accepted the meager meals without complaint and tried to ignore her aunt's impatience, as the woman was rarely home anyway. The landlord, who was also her aunt's employer, was an intriguing character. He would give Winifred lollipops and regale her with amusing tales from the countryside. One day, he said he had something special to show her and invited her to his flat. By then, Winifred had become quite familiar with the landlord and didn't suspect anything amiss. Little did she know she was about to step into an abyss from which there would be no return. The landlord locked the door behind her, suddenly embraced her from behind, nuzzling her neck and groping her chest. Winifred was terrified, struggling and pleading. How naive she was then, still hoping this usually gentle elder would let her go. When that proved futile, she screamed for help, only to have her mouth and nose forcefully covered, smothering any hope of rescue. Winifred was stripped and pinned to the floor, a rough hand roaming over her body. The sensation was like thousands of maggots crawling over her skin, utterly revolting. Fearing discovery, the man didn't actually rape her, but forced her hand to touch him repeatedly. His face was contorted, breathing heavily, spewing vile words. Despite covering Winifred's mouth, he kept asking if she was enjoying it. Winifred wept silently, struggling desperately, only to be pinned down again. There, don't fight it, be a good girl. He cooed. Those words, that voice, would haunt Winifred for half her life. He threatened her not to tell anyone, or he'd fire her aunt and evict them both. Her parents were unreachable in the Highlands, having surrendered their communication devices. If her aunt lost her job and abandoned her, Winifred would have nowhere to go. The helpless young girl capitulated, hiding under the covers, crying and trying to console herself. It's over now, she thought, just this once. How naive she was to think it would end there. Emboldened by her acquiescence, the man became more brazen, demanding Winifred cooperate with his molestation, or he'd tell her teachers and classmates. Terrified, Winifred begged, but to no avail. She had no choice but to comply. Growing more audacious, he began taking her to different locations, even her aunt's single bed. As if performing some ritual, he would light a cigarette each time, ending the ordeal when it burned out. On the nights her aunt worked late, the glowing cigarette tip seared through Winifred's nights, burning them into endless darkness, as if dawn would never come. When the summer holiday ended, Winifred's parents came to take her home. She never told anyone about what had happened, trying desperately to act as if nothing was wrong, but she lay awake night after night. Later, she heard the man had died. She felt immense relief, and her nightmares became less frequent. She thought she could finally move on, but she was wrong. She began to loathe and fear men, finding it difficult to be alone with unfamiliar males except for close friends and classmates. She was hypersensitive to physical contact, often misinterpreting others' intentions as malicious. This led to numerous conflicts with colleagues, severely straining her work relationships. Then she met Gareth Lambert and fell in love with him, but she couldn't fully accept him. Her body seemed cursed, any hint of intimacy would involuntarily trigger memories of that summer. Gareth was a man too, he had that thing, ugly and disgusting. After every intimate encounter, she would have nightmares, reliving that unbearable summer, the filthy hands, and the acrid smell of smoke. After 13 years, Winifred Quill spoke of these past events for the first time. And surprisingly, her heart remained calm. It was as if her soul had been extracted, looking down at those hardships from above, feeling neither sorrow nor pain. That was my inner demon. I was trapped in the trembling soul of my 14-year-old self. No matter how strong or brave I became, I could never go back to save that terrified little girl from the past. And now, you've given me the courage to lay it all bare under the light of day, no longer allowing it to fester and rot, consuming the rest of my life. It turns out that after bravely speaking out, one feels so relieved. It seems that from this moment on, she could truly bid farewell to her former self and be reborn. Winifred took the initiative to embrace Gareth Lambert. I'm sorry, and thank you for loving me. Gareth listened quietly as she recounted her past experiences, clenching his jaw tightly, his eyes red, suddenly shedding tears. For the suffering Winifred had endured, for his own narrow-mindedness. For those misunderstandings and complaints, and for the gratitude of not having missed each other. He hugged Winifred tightly, crying until his nose turned red, his tears falling onto Winifred's neck. It's not enough. I'll love you even more in the future. The cigarette on the coffee table had burned out. Gareth tossed the butt into the bin and lit a new one, holding it between his fingers, gazing at Winifred through the swirling smoke. Look at my face, remember this moment, and try to replace the scenes in your memory. From now on, this cigarette smell will only represent me, the person who loves you and will never hurt you. One after another, Gareth smoked all the cigarettes. Finally, he reached out to embrace Winifred, placing her hand on his face, neck, chest, and waist. Remember this temperature and feeling. This is me, the person you love. We will hold hands, kiss, and exchange body heat. Even if you can't do it now, it's all right. I can wait for you. So Winifred, can you let go of the past and embrace only me? I will use all my sincerity and companionship just to make you happy, even if it's just a little bit more each day. Winifred was stunned for a moment, then hugged Gareth back, nodding with a smile. All right, I remember. Your scent, your body temperature, you are my Gareth. For you, I will become happier. The two embraced, pouring out their true feelings, closer than ever before. Winifred felt a bit awkward and looked up, asking hesitantly, "What do we do now? Should I kiss you?" Gareth couldn't help but laugh. "You don't have to." I said, "You don't need to force yourself. Take it slow. Then let's go on a date tomorrow, to celebrate you finally getting the key. Winifred had always been a composed and decisive person, handling everything with ease. Except when it came to matters of the heart, where she was quite passive. It was always Gareth who took the lead, and she would either accept or endure, never expressing her own wishes or needs. This initiative to ask for a date was probably her first step towards breaking out of her shell and deciding to change. Gareth was naturally delighted. As long as she was willing to try, it was the beginning of success. Winifred proposed that she would choose the location, keeping it a mysterious secret and refusing to tell him the specific place in advance. Rare for her to have such playful little thoughts, Gareth indulged her. He specially left work early, drove to her company to pick her up, and felt his heart explode when he saw her appear. Winifred wore a sleeveless red dress, her neck long and waist slender, making her skin look like polished jade, breathtakingly beautiful. Since knowing Winifred until now, she had never worn a dress, always in trousers all year round, only willing to expose her arms in summer. Now, casting aside those anxieties, she had rekindled a woman's longing for beauty and hope for the future. "Handsome sir, are you waiting for someone?" Gareth played along with a smile. "Yes, I'm waiting for my girlfriend." "Is she beautiful?" "Beautiful, the most beautiful in the whole world."